Welcome to another edition of the Pilot's Advisor podcast. Have a treat for you today. Probably a little bit more specific to FedEx pilots today. This might come into play for Delta pilots right now that are getting their profit sharing checks that are pretty big and impressive. But we're lucky enough to have the one, the only Dave Befort on the show today. I know many of you guys have talked to Dave. If you haven't, you're going to learn many ways that he can help with this whole retirement picture that we bring together. Dave's a fellow Air Force Academy grad, former A-10 pilot, really smart guy. And so, Dave, thanks for being on the podcast again. Appreciate you taking the time. What I wanted to do today is just kind of have a little bit of a back and forth fireside chat, per se, talking about the specifics of FedEx pilots. Not only one with a contract negotiation going on right now, and there'll probably be a big windfall, a big lump sum back payment. But also at the end here, we'll talk about the pension and a better way for the survivor benefit plan if you plan ahead, how you could probably protect your family a lot better, and also legacy planning for a family. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, man. Good. It's been a while. It's been too long. We always talk every time we talk. Hey, we need to do another recording. And then one thing comes up or something else.
Yeah, well, life happens. And I was just telling Dave, I actually found out I had an MRI done and I ruptured a disc in my back. So I have fluid leaking out and I've been limping around like an old man and been in a lot of
There's a cool story behind it, though. You must have been doing something really cool.
Sadly, I'm going to have to come up with a story because I was doing nothing. I wasn't even putting on my underwear or even putting on a sock. I had no incident at all. It's just my hips started hurting and all that sciatica pain down your leg. And I think it's just long-term degeneration of the, discs in my back from, I guess, all the stupid things I've done in my past.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is what it is. I guess I'll be there at one point, but I didn't take quite the impacts you took during your football career. So I guess I'm thankful for that.
Yes, I get it. You're much younger and much better looking than me. I get all that. That's good.
I just didn't play as much football as you. I got hurt and got out early. So there you go. But yeah, man, this is a great conversation. And I hope it's a very timely conversation, meaning that FedEx contract that's been going on for feels like decades.
Too long,
gets finalized very soon. So I've been hearing the rumors from a lot of the FedEx pilots I've been talking to that, hey, they feel like things are getting close. I think, when we're recording right now, yesterday was a union meeting. I got a debrief from somebody on that, actually. So hopefully there's some progress.
Hell has already frozen over and we're still waiting on a contract. So we'll see. Hoping it happens sometime soon. It's been far too long. But more than just that, that'll take care of itself. But there'd be a big windfall. If somebody has a big windfall or even Delta pilots that are getting a big profit sharing check, how do you envision that? And we're obviously talking to you as a guy that knows insurance very well, overfunded whole life. And I look at it as a vital piece to the overall picture in retirement. And I'll talk about that. But when you hear about these windfalls, how would you want to direct that conversation for our listeners and what they could do with that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. And I think what a lot of people have in mind is, I can pay off that car. I can go buy that boat. I can go on that vacation, whatever it may be. And that stuff's all great, right? We need to improve our standard of living, our quality of life over our lifetime a little bit, but it doesn't mean you got to use it all for that. So I go back to this. You might have seen this Shaquille O'Neal video. Real smart dude. I mean, the guy's worth a lot of money, right? He did it right. He's one of the rare examples of dudes who left professional sports and became more wealthy after the fact. But I remember him taking a piece of paper, ripping it in half and saying, most guys will, they tell you to do this, take half of that, set it aside, save, invest, put it away, let it grow, the other half spend. He's like, I take the other half, rip it in half again, put that over there, save, invest, put it away, build your wealth, and 25% of it, just do whatever I want with. And that's the way he's lived his life. And I thought that was brilliant. I mean, we may not all be able to do that with our income, but we certainly can with something like a windfall. If you get, $100,000 windfall, take 25 grand, have fun with it. Treat the family, treat the wife. The other 75, have a plan for it. So, I mean,
And
there's some people that do 100%. Great. But throw that out there.
well, and I've lived by that. I mean, the things I talk about is paying yourself first, as a principle, forced discipline, where you automatically invest money every single month, or even you got that upgrade, you upgraded to captain. Well, guess what? Act like it didn't happen. And I think it's all about working smarter, not harder, because the more aggressive you are younger and the more you build out a system while you're young, that time factor is going to take over and really get you in a much, much better place. Shaq doesn't have to worry about a thing. I mean, obviously he had a very good basketball career, but I heard something like he owns like 155 Taco Bells or Five Guys, like a lot of different
the Five Guys
restaurants.
burgers. Yeah, that's he owns so much. He's diversified every time you turn the TV on.
He's a great case for sure.
Yeah, you see him everywhere. But just like you were saying, some people do stay at a certain level and they don't increase their lifestyle. They've conquered what we call Parkinson's law, which, Parkinson's law is that your expenses will rise to meet your income. And that's usually where most people fall. As time goes on, you get more money, you spend more money. I was talking to somebody you introduced me to, one of your clients recently. The guy's going to retire in a year. He's got nearly 5 million in his 401k. And he said his two secrets was that he's got the same wife he started with, and he never stopped living above his FO pay. So when he made captain, he still kept living his life as an FO, that kind of standard of living, and put that money away. And now, man, he's got a lot of money to spend down before he's gone. He's going to have a lot of fun, and he plans on it.
Well, and one of the things I always say, and I get this from a guy who owns a winery in Napa Valley, and him, Scott Becker. He always says the best is yet to come. I think that if you're smart when you're early and you do some of these things that we talk about, now you're on the right side of the normal curve, and it's all downhill and life's good because you saved while you're early. And it's funny how these conversations come up. I like to think about the insurance policies in a couple of different ways. Number one, it's safe money. If you're going to have any fixed income portion of your portfolio and you're going to pull the throttles back, well, then it should be run through an insurance policy for multiple reasons. Number one, it's going to be tax-free forever. You're going to get dividends and interest on it forever, and it's guaranteed to not go down. So when the market has a pullback, you always have money to pull from for income. So boom, that's an amazing thing, right? It allows you to leave the throttles up in retirement as well. But what often comes up with FedEx pilots, and I want it to come up, with as we bring on new clients, I want it to come up in their 40s and 50s rather than right when they're like 60 and they start thinking about their survivor benefit. It seems like guys right around 60 go, wait a second, all this insurance that I have is going to disappear as soon as I walk away from this job. And I have this 50% survivor benefit. What should I do? And the average guy just selects the 50% survivor benefit. So tell me a little bit about the conversations you have on the survivor benefit plan. I know what I say, and we talk about it back and forth, but man, there's a much, much better way to build out your future, but you just have to plan for it and you have to set it up. And of course, the earlier you set it up, you don't have to take that 50% survivor benefit. You don't have to take that hit on your pension. You can keep that money in your pocket. Do you want to expand on the conversations you have about that?
Yeah, because that's a major conversation. That's a big piece of the conversation every time we talk to a FedEx pilot. And I talk to a lot of them. And like you said, I feel like 8 out of 10 that I talk to and that I end up working with as clients are 60 years old or older.
Yep.
Which is never too late, but it could be a lot earlier. So I don't know what's going on at FedEx, but I know there's a lot of young guys there and they're just not grabbing onto this soon enough. Or they're, other airlines, I talk to those pilots all the time and they're about my age. But it is what it is. But, and a lot of it comes around, like you said, this comes up with the survivor benefit plan. So as everybody should know, the survivor benefit plan, you pay into that during retirement, or really they take part of your pension and keep that at the company and ensure that your spouse, if he or she outlives you, gets to receive a portion of your pension for as long as they live. Right. So it sounds like a great deal. But you look into it and you start thinking, when I look at this from my perspective, you're taking on a lot of risk by signing up for a survivor benefit plan, where first you have to die first. If your spouse dies before you, it's all, sunk cost. You've lost all that money. You're not going to get that back. Second, your spouse has to outlive you long enough to recoup everything you paid into that plan. Right. So, I mean, if you and your spouse are both about the same health and you're going to live about the same length, it's probably not going to pay off. Now when we compare that with what I do and something you believe in, you do it yourself with specially designed whole life insurance, which if you guys want to talk, learn more about the concept itself, the infinite banking concept, recommend going back a few episodes and maybe you can put those in the show notes or something. But you and I, we've talked a lot about that, the concept itself.
Absolutely. And I'll throw out the website that we designed, IBC, the number 4 pilots, IBC 4 pilots. There's a lot of good videos on there to explain the concept and get you going down that path. Because a lot of it's education. I mean, I've never found somebody that doesn't want to do this once they truly understand it.
It is education. That's the first step in the process. And that website we designed specifically for pilots. Me being a pilot, in the Air Force and commercial airline pilot for a couple of years, we speak that language. So I made this pilot proof, ibc4pilots.com, the number 4. You don't even have to spell out the word 4, just the number. And there's a free download of an ebook there that'll take you 15 minutes to read. And that'll be a really great primer on this concept. But going back to survivor benefit plan, when you compare that side by side with a properly designed cash value whole life insurance policy, there's a lot of differences. The biggest one is risk. With survivor benefit plan, you take on a lot of the risk, a lot more than the company takes on, probably statistically. With whole life insurance, you actually transfer 100% of that risk to the mutual life insurance company. They're very good at taking on risk. They've been around for 120 years. Oh, that's another thing. These companies aren't going anywhere. FedEx, I don't know. Stranger things have happened in a company just disappearing overnight and pensions being lost, survivor benefit plans lost. Not to be doom and gloom, but this stuff happens, right? So there's a lot of benefits with the whole life. You can create your own survivor benefit plan today. And the earlier you start, the bigger it's going to be. You can leave it to your spouse. You can leave it to your kids. If your spouse dies before you, leave it to your kids, grandkids, a charity, whatever you want.
Well, right? Let's just talk about the math of it real quick, because obviously the longer you wait, insurance is more expensive. It's just the way it is. I mean, you got to go get pre-qualified to see if you can even do this, right?
Yep.
So what's your age, what's your health, what does your blood work look like? But the earlier you do it, the more efficient it's going to be. But just as an example, right now, if you got a full pension at FedEx, it's $130,000 a year. So if you take that 50% survivor benefit, the numbers are all different by when you got hired and a few other things. But I mean, it's normally around like 15 grand a year.
It's somewhere 15 to 20 grand is what I've seen.
Yeah. And so anywhere between 15 or 20 grand, you're going to lose. It's just going to go away right off the top that you're not going to receive. And let's say something happens to you, day one, you die. Well, you take that 130 or whatever that pension is and divide it by 2. Okay. That'd be 65 after taxes. The benefits may be $50-some thousand a year for your spouse. Okay.
Right. Not a lot.
So that's the benefit that we're trying to replace. But if we do one of these plans, you have $15,000 to $20,000 of premium that you were going to throw away anyway, that was just going to disappear. And whether you get $1 million or $2 million of insurance, I can tell you right now, if your spouse gets a $2 million payout, tax-free lump sum, if should something happen to you, we can provide way more than $50,000 a year in retirement for them to take care of them. And that you get, let's say you live 10, 15, 20 years after you retire, you're not only getting to keep that 15 or 20 grand in your pocket every single year because you have the cash value of the insurance policy, but it's growing and that death benefit's growing, right?
Right. Absolutely. So that's what we look at. We look at, and I compare that. I take that net number that a spouse is going to receive on an annual basis, call it $50,000, like you just pointed out, probably at the maximum 50 to 55 grand. And we look at what kind of using the exact same dollars, but putting them into something that you own, you control, and you have access to, how much death benefit is that going to create? And I just take that death benefit number and divide by $50,000. That's how many years that this equates to in a survivor benefit plan. And there's other ways to have that paid out. It could be paid out as like an annuity, right? So they could pay it out on a monthly or annual basis and make it last a lot longer. Or you take that income tax-free chunk, your spouse does, hand it to somebody smart with money like Ryan and say, hey, grow this and just let me live off the interest. And you can make that last very long.
Yeah, and we can set it up where the income, shows up in your checking account every single month, just like you still had a job, and life's good. And the biggest factor of it is that it's money that you were throwing away anyway. You were losing it. It was going away anyway. And all we're doing is we're showing you a more efficient way to have more protection and better legacy planning by just coming up with a plan in advance. And what I found as we get into retirement, I say all the time that pilots know they have to save for retirement, but they don't really understand the distribution phase of retirement.
Right.
And so when we start looking at this, not only does this insurance policy provide you better protection than the 50% survivor benefit, but it also gives you permission to spend down your 401k. Most people aren't spending it down, but the 4% safe withdrawal rate goes out the window. It's more like 9% if you have an insurance policy. So regardless of how much you live in retirement, go on all the vacations you want, because when you retire from this earth, boom, $2 million tax-free. The government gets none of it, and you've provided a legacy, whether that's from your spouse or your children.
Right. Exactly. So many benefits to it. And one of the greatest one, a living benefit. That's why it's called life insurance, not death insurance, because with this life insurance, you actually get some living benefits. That 15 to 20K you were going to give to the company, but now you're putting it somewhere you own and control. That's grown for you. You have access to that. That's capital available for you. Like you mentioned earlier in this conversation, the volatility buffer. When that market takes a dip, stop taking money out of the market, because your 401k is not going to last as long if you do. Reach over here into your cash value, start taking that as a tax-free income through the loan feature, and let the market rebound. When it rebounds, you go to take it back out of the market. Like you said, it gets you a license to spend because your 401k will last longer. You get to spend more in retirement, and you leave more behind. That's all actual. That's a result of a study that Ernst & Young did in 2022. I've got the link right in front of me. By adding permanent life insurance to your portfolio, you actually get to spend more in retirement and you leave more behind. And I know, and the results of this was really interesting because it really matched up almost exactly with your philosophy. When we talk a lot, you talk about having, about 25% of your portfolio in a safe money asset. Ernst & Young compared 10%, 30%, and 50% of your nest egg being in, going towards permanent life insurance. Well, the sweet spot was the 30% one. So you're right there. And it's
that number is not, and I want to throw that out there real quick too, because what Dave's talking about with the market volatility, it's preventing sequence of returns risk. It's us coming up with a system, or we all flew airplanes, redundancies. So regardless of what happens, we're still good to go. So that number for you, if you have a pension and a military pension, it might not be 20% or 25%. It might be more like 15%.
Right.
That doesn't matter. What we're trying to show you is a system that is in your best interest, that's going to protect you and your family. And I hate it because I know it's in my client's best interest. It actually takes assets away from me, so it's counterintuitive, but I know that it's better for my clients, and my job is to provide something that's better for my clients. And if they can build that out prior to retirement, the distribution phase is so much easier, so much easier, because it lowers that overall standard deviation of their portfolio significantly when you could put a portion over here that there's no risk at all. It's guaranteed to go up.
Right. It'll be there when you need it.
I think it's more, we talk about education, but let's talk about the philosophy behind it, because I think what happens is a lot of people, number one, they hear insurance and they're like, oh, I don't do that. Right. Whole life, oh, I don't do that. And they think about it as a payment. And so that's why I try to talk about it. It's not a payment. It's just the fixed income portion of your portfolio. You're taking money from over here that is in equities, we'll say, and you're moving it to another pocket. You still have control of those assets. You're just moving it somewhere else. People would have no problem putting in their checking account or their savings account or a high yield savings account or whatever it
Right.
is. But this is the exact same thing, but it grows tax free. It has the liquidity. Oh, and by the way, there's this massive tax free death benefit that rolls with it.
Yeah. And you get to access all of that while you're alive, not the death benefit, the cash value, of course. But, and I use it for so many things. What I would tell people who are coming up on a pay raise, a contract increase, an upgrade, a lump sum, back pay, have a place for that money to go. Right. And by doing this is a perfect place to capture that. And like you said, pay yourself first, which people pay lip service to. They don't actually pay themselves first. They pay somebody else first. Because where's all the money under their control? This is where I put all my money under my control. And then from there, I can direct it anywhere else I want. But it's just simply redirecting funds you're going to put somewhere else, put it here instead and see what it can create for you.
Yeah, and if you start digging into all the other benefits, that's where we start talking about financing cars, financing college, kids' college education. And I think those are very, very valuable things. And we probably need to do a podcast on that, really like building it out and explaining it to people versus like a 529 plan. Because I think, I definitely think it's a better way. But talk to me a little bit, some questions I have. What's the difference? Like, so if somebody's built a lot of liquid security, they got a couple $100,000 in their checking account or a taxable investment account, they could obviously pay $30,000, $40,000 premiums every single year, no problem, probably just off the growth of those accounts.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people that, they should want this, but if they haven't built that liquid security to pay an annual premium, how do things change if you were just going to earmark a monthly premium? Like, let's say we're going to earmark $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month to pay a premium versus that annual premium. How does that change things? What's your perspective on that?
So, it's whatever suits your lifestyle, your situation, whether you pay annually or you pay monthly. It doesn't matter. Some people like the monthly because it's like a forced savings plan and it's automatic. It comes out of your account just like any other, standard conventional investment where they just pull it automatically. It's very hands off. It's very easy. But a lot of people's question is, where do I come up with this extra $1,000? Well, one way we're talking about is with a pay raise. So have a plan for it. Another way, though, it's really all about redirecting where your money's going already. Most people, when I talk to them, have several different buckets where they're putting money. And some are very disciplined. They put this much in for a car fund. They have a different checking account for a car fund. The next car they're going to buy in 5 years. Over here is vacation. Over here is, the taxes and insurance they got to pay on something or kids' tuition, whatever. I take a look at that and we devise a strategy where you can redirect that money through a policy first before it ever leaves your hand forever. Because what happens is when people are paying cash, they're giving up the interest they could have earned on that cash for the rest of your life. What's the opportunity cost? If you could earn a modest 5% on your money for the rest of your life, what's the opportunity cost of paying $30,000 cash for a car versus doing it this way? That's $30,000 at 5% every year for the rest of your life. That's what you're giving up. To use an example, you're giving up the ability to compound that growth over time by not first capturing a portion of your money into one of these policies where it will compound uninterrupted and you still have access to it at the same time.
Well, I really start thinking about it. It's more about sequencing money through a policy. Even if it was already earmarked for something else, just run it through an insurance policy. You can, borrow against that policy, but now you're at least letting that dollar, that dollars are working for you for the rest of your life. And you have the death benefit, even though you already used the money for something else. So
you're building another asset. It truly is another asset that you're building.
Well, and that's why I like it. There's that one book, and I forget the guy. We know the guy that can't remember his name, but he calls it the and asset, and it truly is where your money's working for you in multiple different places.
Yeah, right. It is. It's not either or. It's both and. I can have both.
So a lot of it for me is just not understanding, and I would challenge anybody to try to educate yourself, because once you see it, then you're like, oh, now I get it. And I personally find as people get farther and farther down the line or in retirement where they have to move money anyway, whether that money's, because we have all that tax deferred money, we saved up this whole 401k. We got to move the money anyway, because otherwise we're going to give it to the government. We're just going to give it out in RMDs.
Right.
And they want to move it into the policy because they see how it never goes down and it's getting those tax-free dividends. And
Yeah.
and they wish they would have got a bigger policy.
Yeah. It's usually the number one complaint. Second complaint. Number one is, I wish I would have done this earlier.
Yeah.
Number two is, I wish I would have gone bigger. But you're right. You create strategies with because you and I work together on creating strategies for clients that where you can maybe draw down their 401k prior to their required minimum distribution age, so that RMD isn't so big, because a lot of people don't want what they're going to get at that time, but they're going to make them, the government will make you take it anyway. So take some early and start putting that towards this premium.
Attention aviators, when you've spent years in the cockpit managing the complexities of flight, isn't it time you navigated your retirement with the same precision? Introducing retirepilots.com. Right at your touchdown zone on our homepage, there's a beacon flashing, "Get my free toolkit." Click that and you'll be cleared for a direct route to Ryan's retirement toolkit, tailor-made for pilots like you. Inside, you'll find two of his important works, The Pilot's Advisor and Pilots Retire Early. Between these two books, you can decipher the 9 critical decisions when retiring before 65 and discover the 7 lessons to help pilots land safely in retirement. But that's not all. This toolkit is packed with altitude-high value, including extras to get your retirement plans off the runway and light the afterburners on your 401k. Vector on over to retirepilots.com to grab your toolkit, and let's embark on this journey together.
So I want to challenge 2 things. Number one, people talk about Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's talking to the person that makes $60,000 a year, is in massive credit card debt. So it's very non-specific.
That's not this audience.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, buy term, invest the difference or whatever. Well, once we start maxing out a 401k, once we build, we're doing backdoor Roths on the outside. We've built a great taxable investment account. I feel like this is like, well, what's next? Well, this is what's next. Just most people don't get there. And when I bring that up, what I want to ask you about, Dave, is very, very intelligent, wealthy people have been using this for generations to pass on wealth. Mm-hmm. And they're not dumb. They're not dumb. It's no different than, if Elon Musk goes and buys a house, he doesn't go pay cash for it because he wants to use other people's money and let his money continue to work for him. So what I bring that up to ask you, tell me about how wealthy people and names that people know have been doing this for generations to pass on wealth so that and they're basically getting it so the government doesn't stick their hand in the cookie jar.
Yeah, exactly. One of a name everybody knows is the Rockefellers. They're a perfect example where generation after generation, permanent life insurance is purchased on every Rockefeller. And the beneficiary of every policy is a family trust. So when somebody graduates from this earth, that trust gets replenished. But then there's rules set up on how much somebody can borrow. And guess what? If you never pay it back, it's going to get paid back when you die. And wouldn't it be great? Some people say, yeah, my kids don't need all of that. I'm thinking, man, what if when you were going through all your training, like those people who had to pay out of pocket for their training, $100,000 to get all your ratings and get qualified to get hired by FedEx. Like some people had to go to the bank, right? Get a bank loan, and they're still paying on it today. Wouldn't it have been nice to be able to go to your family, your father, your mother, and say, can I take a loan from the family bank to do this? And then you pay it back under more beneficial terms. Or maybe there's a plan where you don't have to pay it back. I don't know. Whatever the family decides, because that money is there and it's getting replenished. Like that's who I want to be for my kids. Well, I want to be the bank.
Well, and I started thinking about this once I truly discovered it. It's not for somebody that's selfish at all. This is definitely a long-term play. It's definitely a legacy planning play. I'm one of those guys that when I retire from this earth, I want my kids to be like, man, that dude had it figured out.
Yeah.
Like he's the one that made all these sacrifices so that we could live the way we're living and look at this legacy that was built. And I think a lot of that's because I had a chip on my shoulder. I mean, I was definitely the kid that grew up on the other side of the tracks.
Yeah.
Didn't have much, and I didn't want to live paycheck to paycheck like we did. So I wanted to change things. And once I start seeing the power of this, like taking out a policy on your kid, let's talk about that. Because I have policies on myself to protect my family, and I sleep a lot better at night because of that. But I took out policies on my kids, and I did it when they were 13 and 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
And talk about that. I mean, you're a little bit limited on what you can do, but the power of that, if you keep funding those policies over the long term, or even, say you do it only until they're 30 and you make them take it over.
Yeah. I mean, you're creating legacies first with yourself, and then you create that with your kids to take care of your future grandkids. But I mean, like you were saying, the way you grew up, like nobody, it's crazy to think back however many hundreds or thousands of years in my lineage, nobody in my bloodline has built a legacy that's a financial legacy that has lasted through the bloodline. Well, somebody's got to do it. It's going to be me. I'm going to start that in my bloodline, and then it's going to continue with my kids because they've all got policies. I got 7 kids. Every kid has a life insurance policy. My 2 oldest, since they're adults, 18 and 19, they're going to be getting their own and start funding their own policy because they understand it. They've seen the power of it, and they know the importance of it. But, a lot of people think, why in the world would I need life insurance on my kid? They don't make any money. It's not going to be a financial disaster if something happens to them, which is typically the general thought on life insurance.
Not about that. You don't get it.
It's not about that. Right. It's about, the policies I started on my kids, most of them started younger. One of them was maybe, a year old when he got a policy because I learned from the older 2. And what these do is they're going to create something. I mean, I've got 2 boys who we've already been able to use their policies to buy their first car, and then they're paying me back.
But they're getting all the interest because it's the family bank and not some random USAA or Bank of America is getting the interest.
Right. Who would you rather pay interest to? Your family members or, Mr. Potter down the street in Pottersville?
I think what scares a lot of people too, especially if we talked about paying policy premiums on your kids. What if I don't want to pay that premium for the rest of my life? Can you talk a little bit about where at some point you let the dividends just pay the premium?
You absolutely could. And that's a big question with people going into retirement. Typically, I mean, if you've been funding these things for about 10 years, then the annual dividend, which are not guaranteed, dividends aren't guaranteed, but the companies that I write for and that you're familiar with have been in existence for longer than 120 years, and they paid out a dividend every single year for 120 plus years. It's a pretty good track record. So those dividends start compounding over time, and eventually they get to be the size that they could actually cover your premium for you. It's called premium offset.
Interest could pay the premium.
Like, how incredible is that? Then you can be completely hands off if you want. But also by that point, every dollar you're paying is maybe creating $1.50 or $2 in cash value. So you could choose to keep paying it and still make a huge gain on your money that year. So many different options you have. But with these kids, the juvenile policies, it's really fun to look at this. When I decide to transfer ownership to them, which I don't ever have to do, and it's not going to be a carte blanche, every kid at 25 years old, they become the owner. No, it's going to be, are you intelligent enough? Are you serious enough? Are you going to treat this thing like an actual bank and not a piggy bank? But when I transfer it to them, it's going to be the greatest savings account they'll ever have, because by that time, every dollar they put in there in premium is probably creating $3 or $4 in cash value that year. Where are they going to get that kind of return anywhere else unless they invested in Bitcoin in 2009?
Yeah. I just don't, it's almost embarrassing because I get excited about this and I want to educate my children and I want them to understand how money works, because once you start understanding it, you make better and better decisions, and you understand how to allow your money to compound over time. And of course, taxes become a huge thing. Once you understand what the tax code does and where you're losing your money and what's the most beneficial type of money. And I just wish that we could educate people when they're younger.
Yeah. And this is a great way to do it, by example. And guess what? If your kids decide not to get educated, then they don't get to reap the living benefits of that policy you've created for them. You keep it until they are ready. And that's probably going to be some good motivation for a kid to get smart about money. And guess what? You stop being scared of money. Most people are really scared of money if they really think about it.
Or they don't want to talk about it. It's still like taboo, like politics or what have you.
Yeah.
But I'm one of those people that I think it's probably one of the most important things in our lives. It makes the world go round. It's how you protect your family. It's if you don't talk about it, you're not going to be prepared for retirement. I mean, and that's one of the whole reason why we work in many cases. We live day to day, but why are we saving? We're saving so we can retire one day. And if you don't talk about it, or you don't get your money working for you efficiently, you're just falling behind. You can't keep kicking that can down the street.
Yeah. The earlier you start, the better, because time is the one factor that you can't escape.
So I feel like nobody has any problem putting money in a CD. They don't have any problem building it in their checking account. They have no problem throwing money in their savings account where it's just sitting there doing nothing for them, not even keeping up with inflation. But yet they can't see how this is not a payment, that this is probably one of the best places for you to store capital. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, I'd say it's really it's a complete paradigm shift when you start thinking about money and the way that we think about money, which is I never want to lose my principal, my face value. The amount of money that I earn from my blood, sweat, and tears, I don't want to give that away and lose the ability to earn on that ever again. So I try to stack as much as I can inside my own system so that I get to keep that and the earnings on that for the rest of my life, and I can just leverage it to go put somewhere else. A lot of people say, this is the funniest comment I ever hear, is I'm pretty conservative, so that doesn't sound like it's for me. And what they're saying is, I follow the crowd, and the crowd doesn't do this, so it's not for me, because they confuse following the crowd, conformity, with being conservative financially, and it's anything but.
If you're conservative, this is the best place to put money.
This is, because generations have been doing it. I mean, the whole life insurance has been around for like 250 years.
Well, it's never going to go down in value. It's the only one of the very few things where we can say the G word. I can't say the G word hardly at all.
No, you can't. I can say it all day long. I love guarantees.
Yeah. And it is an amazing thing when you start thinking about it that way. I want to make sure that, if you guys haven't listened to the Wealth Warehouse podcast, Dave and Paul are on there. It's great listening just to reframe your mind and get you to understand this a little bit better. The show notes, www.ibc4pilots.com. And one of my favorite things is you did that video. It was a long time ago, but I think it's got like millions of views now. And I'm going to say it's only like 4 or 5 minutes where you just talk about what happens with money. And then it's just a very, very succinct, short way to explain the overall picture.
Yeah. So if you search my name on YouTube, that one will come up. I don't think it's got millions yet because I haven't started receiving paychecks from YouTube, but it's got 300,000 or 400,000 views. And I will say it's probably the best 4.5 minute summary. But actually, Ryan, that video is on that website.
It's on IBC for Pilots. Yep. I know. I want to link in the show notes separately. So at a minimum, if you don't have time to educate yourself, or if this isn't important, watch that video and then you'll be like, whoa, let me think about this in a different way.
Yeah. Watch that video, get the download of the book, maybe even order the other book that's on there, and then schedule time to talk to me. There's never any pressure. I spend my days talking to people, having introductory calls and see, is this a fit for you? And, let's strategize about what to do with that windfall and that pay raise you got coming. Capture that somewhere where it's going to be working for you forever. And, don't let that money control you. You control that money is really what it comes down to.
Any final messages? And like I said, this is for FedEx pilots once they get a new contract, Delta pilots right now that are getting profit sharing checks. I hate to say it, hate to bring it up, but you have a mom or a dad that passes away and you get a windfall. Why not create a legacy with that money so it passes on for generation and protects your family, protects your spouse, protects your kids, and then you can have a lot more fun in retirement.
Yeah. So I guess my parting shot would be, if it sounds like something you want to do, then there is a way to kind of set yourself up to hit the ground running as soon as that money comes in, as soon as that contract finalizes and you get all that. I'm a big fan of convertible term insurance. So we can get you set up and qualified right now, get a, cheap in the sense that it doesn't cost very much money every month. It's not a big payment. You get that term insurance put in place. And as soon as the contract changes or you get your next pay raise, and I've got clients that do this already, they're ready to start a new policy, a whole life policy, because they've already been approved for the death benefit with that term insurance.
What does that convertible term do? Does it lock in those rates right then when you did it, or does it lock it in when you put the big lump sum or that bigger payment of premium?
So the convertible term insurance is just like any term insurance, which everybody knows. It's a standard payment for 10, 20, or 30 years, whatever you decide.
Insurance companies love term insurance.
Yeah, because it never pays out. Because nobody dies. I mean, it pays out maybe 1% of the time. The stats are somewhere like 1 to 2% of the time they have to pay out. That's a big moneymaker.
Versus what I get all the time. Oh, my term policy that I got, well, it expires at 66.
Yeah, so you better die early.
Yeah.
If you want to win and recoup that financial cost. But what convertible term, guaranteed convertible, it just means you've locked in your health today. So you go through underwriting, you get your rating. They say, hey, we've locked in your rating no matter what happens, say in the next 10 years. You could come down with cancer, God forbid, and they would still guarantee you the ability to create a whole life policy from what you already approved over here without going back through underwriting. So
why would anybody ever just buy term insurance? Why wouldn't you do convertible term?
Because they don't know about it. Yeah, because they don't know about it. How many people hit that point where they're like, man, my term is about to expire. I want to keep it because I'm uninsurable now. I mean, pilots become uninsurable. Like I was talking to a guy who had a high PSA rating recently and he's not insurable. Or, AFib. A lot of pilots have AFib, I found.
Yep.
And some of them are not insurable. But if you had this in place already, it doesn't matter what happens to you in the eyes of the insurance company because they've already given you the right to start a whole life and keep that insurance forever, make it permanent.
Well, I don't know why anybody wouldn't do convertible term, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s. I mean, it just makes more sense because you have the option before you
don't know what tomorrow brings.
Health issues. And I'm going to bring this up, and I hate it, but I've been dealing with this a lot lately. Pilots don't have a good track record anyway, being at altitude all that time. I mean, I've just in the past week heard of brain cancer, pancreatic cancer. I mean, it's horrible, but it's a reality. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to hear more and more cases of this and too little, too late if you haven't protected your family already.
Absolutely. And this is the easiest way to protect them. And it's the simplest thing in the world. After somebody graduates from this earth, the insurance company sends a check to the beneficiary, tax-free, go cash it, do whatever you need to with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, have a conversation with me or go to IBC for Pilots. I would at minimum sign up for a appointment with Dave to start the process. Doesn't mean you have to press forward, but educate yourself. Watch some of those videos. We've tried to make it pilot proof. I don't know if it's marine proof, but we've done our best. I got to give a shout out to my Marines. I always pick on them just because some good dudes out there, some really great guys. A lot of the Harrier pilots, and so I always pick on my Marine guys. So there's your shout out. You know who you are because I'll hear about this. But Dave, we need to do it more often. It's a piece of the puzzle that I think most people don't actualize and know where it fits in. But once you fit this in, you have so much more control on so many levels. Not only
uncertainty.
Not only on the living, day to day, well before retirement, but definitely in the distribution phase of life. So thanks for coming on our show. We'll have all that stuff in the show notes. Let's have you on the podcast a little bit more. I would love to set a call up in the future just to talk about how we can use this instead of 529 plans.
We need to do that for sure.
Absolutely. So to all the FedEx pilots out there, let's hope you get a contract sometime soon. It's been a long, long time. Anybody with any Windfalls, Delta pilots with your profit sharing checks, reach out to us. We'll talk to you all soon.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.